Hello and welcome. My name is Josh Wittenberg. Today we will be analyzing a news interview talking about an English only policy. So, a little bit of background. The United States is one of the few countries without a specified official language. The reason for this mainly circles back to the US being a multilingual nation. Back in 1964, part of the Civil Rights Act protected the rights of individual taxpayers who did not speak fluent English. Fast forwarding, in 2017, the English Language Unity Act, Congress looked at amending Section 3, Chapter 6, citing the official language of the United States as English. This did not get passed on, so this is still not true. Here's our interview with Mauro Mujica. He is the leader of English First, and the focus of this presentation is on HR 997, better known as the English Language Unity Act of 2017, which I previously mentioned. The decision was based on whether or not the United States should make the official language English. What is being analyzed here is a short news article with Mauro Mujica, the U.S. English Incorporated chairman and CEO. He is aiming to make the United States official language English. He personally speaks 5 languages, is an Israeli immigrant, and mentions that immigrants coming to Israel are assimilated to the culture, language, and everything that they believe will help them in becoming citizens. They do this as a paid government program. Mauro said instead of trying to function in any of the 350 languages, we want the government to begin teaching English to immigrants to help them also assimilate. He believes the U.S. should officiate in a unifying manner, not as a means to shut out other languages. Mujica also mentions English as the lingua franca or bridge language of the world today. So, both the individuals in the video, Carl Tuckerson and Mauro, speak standard English for the duration of the interview. In regards to the words used to describe English, it remained pretty much at that. English was described as a vital key to success and as an essential language and a bridge language, but they didn't really specify any variety. Language attitudes. So Mujica mentions a few beliefs and even factual studies about standard language variety, specifically in English. Mentioned in the interview is a study done by Brookings Institute, which says nearly 1 in 10 working age adults in the US are considered limited English proficient, earning as much as 25 to 40% less than those who can speak English well. This could make the assumption that without English, you will make less in the United States. Another belief is that in the US, standard English is key to successful business, travel, and even education, which when you look at most businesses, schools, and so on, English is the predominant language, and knowing it would help many non-speakers adapt and overcome language barriers they face. Finally, Mujica and Carlson talk about countries like Belgium, who split up its chosen languages by region, arguably causing divide. You can find more information on this just by a simple Google search. It's pretty popular right now. The same was mentioned for the Canadian province, Quebec, causing a long-standing divide of culture and language as it is selected French for its main language. Montreal specifically is the most language divided. Mujica said the aim of instilling English as the official language is to unite, not divide the country as has been done by others when attempting multiple languages. So here is a graph depicting official languages in Canada. It's mainly focused on English or French, the two main languages. So it's evident when you're looking at Quebec here, it's the only mostly French-speaking province, with 85% speaking French. The rest of the map, however, shows a large, 26,000 or 26 million English-speaking population, with French coming in at a little under 7 or 8 million. It's a pretty interesting little graph to look at and helpful in understanding the breakdown of who speaks which language. Additionally here, just for fun, an interesting figure showing the most common studied languages in the world. English, by a long lead, ranks the most commonly studied foreign language in the world with approximately 1.5 billion learners. Pretty interesting to see this, especially just because of the topic right now. Moving on to linguistic facts. So we have largely broken down this interview. It's a very short one, but full of some interesting topics, and just want to delve a little deeper here on the beliefs and information presented thus far and whether or not it's linguistically factual. So there is first a concern that by making English the US language, it discourages the assimilation of non-English speakers. And ironically, the academic source I am utilizing in this section by Hunter College, specifically the Max Weber Social Sciences Department, mentions my main subject, English first. The issue is addressing whether these beliefs are accurate, is that they go beyond just declaring the language and conjure up other issues like anti-immigrant sentiment. The information presented in the interview is largely accurate when you look at other countries having difficulty in choosing languages, oftentimes when there is more than one language, which almost always is the case. Hunter College mentions proponents of official English policies arguing that English has been the dominant language and should be made official to simplify government processes. Based on the studies of the overall language use in the United States, English remains largely predominant. Additionally, in regards to business, it remains the most used. Finally, when looking at earnings, the study I mentioned previously by Brookings Institute shows learning English would benefit less proficient speakers in their earnings, and further could prove assimilation to better improve over time. As discussed in Week 12, language planning covers many topics, such as roles of minority languages, and even to codifying our writing systems. With about 6,000 languages, there is widespread multilingualism, especially in the United States. And enacting policy often turns to viewing the best form of language. So if we base it solely off the number of English speakers in the US, the language be the most common. So our street signs, government documents, and most schools utilize the English language. All right, let's wrap this up. We talked about English first, specifically hearing from Mauro Mujica, a bilingual immigrant who believes the official language of the US should be English based on a few criteria. First, mentioning the idea that instead of trying to function in any of the 350 languages in the country, the government should begin teaching immigrants English and help them to assimilate. Similar to his example of Israel, follows this procedure before allowing immigrants to become citizens. Second, Mauro brings up the support in having a set language, which about 83% agree with, uh, and that's for the US. A third, the lingua franca, or bridge language, that Mujica and many others say English represents around the world. Fourth, the increasing use of English in business, travel, and education, seeing a common use of the language globally. Additionally, however, there are complex concerns in deciding the language of the US. And it's important that in making the decision, immigrants in minority languages don't feel left out and that they don't get discouraged, but instead given the tools to assimilate in a non-discriminatory manner. In closing, Mauro Mujica presents some interesting information, and those who oppose it also have valid reasons. Mauro's decision-making from analysis looks to be based on linguistic fact, as he is an immigrant himself who comes from multiple languages, doesn't mention implicit biases about how others speak, and he doesn't mention what variation of English should even be utilized, but rather just focuses on English as a whole language. This allows for further discussion on what variation may be presented later on, if there even is any. He uses factual evidence in what was mentioned during the interview as well. So on an ending note, I did want to include, Mojica does mention that if someone speaks to him in a different language, one that he knows, he will respond back in that language, not pushing or degrading them for not speaking English, which I thought was pretty interesting and definitely would be more beneficial for people to do going forward. And here's a quick look at all of my sources. And thank you so much. Have a great day.